Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 782 for the 15th of April. We continue to the strategy and tactical reporting. First thing first is over in the Southern Front as we go anti-clockwise direction. Fighting at Krinky continues to be reported according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry on both days. Krinky, as you can see, Krinky again. So the cringy battle over at this area here continues. So I really have nothing much to say more because this is such a pointless battle around this area here. And there is also other news. Basically, there is bombardment being reported at Mykolaiv, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. And if we zoom out, there is a geolocation over at Gavrivlivka or Harelivka. So there is a geolocation of a Russian guided missile attack from a helicopter, I believe, at this position. So, and then otherwise, that's all for this Kherson Front. And we move into the Zaporizhzhia Front, and before we reach there, there is shelling reported over at Chekolove. This is reported by the Russian Defense Ministry. Nothing much to talk about. It's basically the Russians part of the Russian continuous attempt to bombard Ukrainian gathering of forces wherever they can find them across the Dnipro River opposite of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Over at the Zaporizhzhia Front, we have fighting continuing to be reported over at Robotine. This time around, we also have fighting reported northwest of Verbove on the over the past 24 hours, as well as southwest of Belokhyaya, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. There is some geolocations along the road from Novodanilivka moving towards to Robotine. Geolocation of Ukrainian forces getting hit by FPV drone as well as also FPV drones. So Ukrainian forces continue to go down this road to reinforce their position at Robotine, which is a suicide mission. And this particularly, there is also this one particular one was a group of soldiers walking down the road, and then they got just hit by FPV drone. Quite disastrous. This is a pickup truck. So as I mentioned before, this is an extremely not helpful position to hold because the Russian forces are way too close to this road, and they don't have enough buffer zone. And not to mention that Russians still have a lot of drones, and it's in increasing amount. And there's Lancet and FPV drones is making things very difficult. At Kharkiv, there's a Lancet, as I just mentioned. Lancets usually are used to hit bigger targets, and this time around they use this to hit a M109 Paladin self-propelled artillery, and so there goes another artillery gun. So that's all from this Kharkiv sector. Over at Stepove, there was an FPV drone attack on Ukrainian positions, showing Ukrainian presence over at Stepove. And over at the Huaypole sector, we have geolocation of counter battery fire against the M777 over at Zalizhne, correct. And over at Priloki, I believe it is called Priloki, correct. At Priloki, there is a Lancet hitting a Ukrainian tank. So these are the various geolocated stuff. Over at Huaypole sector, we have fighting reported at Zhevone, according to the Russian Defense Ministry, on the 14th of April. But the fact that it's not reported on the 15th means that it's just a one-off attack. So that's all over at the Zaporizhzhia Front. We move into the Donetsk Front. This is the Donetsk Front. At the Velikanovo, okay, we just go on the strategic so we don't overdo it. There is fighting reported north of Prione over at Staromayorske at Uruzaine, and there is fighting reported towards Vodian. There is battle of Novomikhailivka going on at Prione. There is still fighting, and battle of Krasnohorivka is ongoing. So this is the strategic situation over this area here. The battles around the Velika Novosilka sector on the Russian side continues to be rather positional in nature. There is no idea what the hell is happening about the Vodian direction near the Voleda, in the Voleda sector. Marinka sector, of course, we have the battle of Novomikhailivka ongoing. Russian forces pushing out of Prione. No, not is that Prione? No. It's Boyeda, sorry. At Boyeda, as well as Battle of Krasnohorivka is going into high gear. At this on the Velika sector, there is a geolocation of Russian airstrike at Uruzhaine. This is an ongoing thing that it had happened so many times. Uruzhaine is as flat as you can go, given any village to go, because the Russians have thrown so much airstrikes and artillery as well as thermobaric missiles at that location. The restart of the battle in the north of Prione is interesting. The last battle was on the 28th of March. Russian forces reportedly is attacking, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. We will continue to see whether this develops into anything. Otherwise, with the frontline change showing that the Russians have retaken this tree line, it does shows that the Russians want to maintain a certain line around Staromayoske, but do not want to capture this area here. They want to continue to draw in Ukrainian forces into this area here. Staromayoske and Uruzhaine is very important because there is a road leading this, connecting these two villages or these two towns. So it is strategically important because it allows forces to swap sides across the river. However, this is also a death trap. The Russians have clearly the firepower and the manpower to capture it. The two villages constantly getting bombarded. It's super flattened. That is an easy capture, to be honest, but the Russians did not want to take it. And the Ukrainians continue to send troops there. Very AI-ish. We move into... there is this frontline change over in the western part of Solotke, which means that the Russian forces may be pushing in this direction towards Vodian, which means that the fighting reported towards Vodian might actually be coming from Solotke direction. But let's see how this goes, because there is very little news or reporting coming from about this area here by the open source intelligence and the sources. There is basically not much news about Novomikhailivka anymore. So I believe the Russians are currently holding positions and are doing skirmishes rather than going on assault. Boyeda direction is a bit still also very unclear. Based on previous reports, we know that the Russian forces are pushing in two different directions, towards Konstantinivka and towards Antonivka. Either one or both. So that's all from Boyeda. As per mentioned in the frontline changes report, Ukrainian forces have retaken Georgievka, and they are moving the front line, or rather that the Russian forces are unable to hold that front line, and now the front line is basically along the lake. And geolocation of Russian airstrike on Ukrainian position south of Georgievka, and a battle of Krasnohorivka, of course, went into another gear, with Russian forces now geolocated right in the center of the southern part of Krasnohorivka. And there was actually shelling of Ukrainian forces over in the southern part. This one is a strike, might be actually an airstrike, and this one is actually a mortar attack. So there is multiple geolocation of Ukrainian forces getting hit all over the place. Russian forces is probably securing this entire area here, the entire southeastern part of Krasnohorivka, creating a strong position, a foothold, to allow them to now attack in all directions if they choose to. So, and the first direction that they choose to attack is towards the center of the southern part to capture the railway line. And with this, they can actually go on to cut off the entire southern part of the Krasnohorivka, which means that Ukrainian forces currently holding defensive position here is starting to feel a bit stupid, and they will have to do counter-attack to secure their retreat routes. If they fail to do so, they will be encircled. So this is not fun. So they will have to do this counter-attack in the reverse direction in their own direction, towards the direction of their home base. This may also allow the Russian forces to attack them in their rear as they try to push towards the railway station. The Russians may take advantage and actually hit them in the rear, and then create a accidental pincer attack on themselves, and basically the operational encirclement. So we will continue to monitor how this goes. Ukrainian forces are not doing nothing. While the Russian forces are holding all this position, the Ukrainian forces are bombarding them with possible airstrikes and heavy artillery. So the Ukrainians are definitely trying, but artillery situation for the Ukrainians right now is a bit scarce. They are not having enough shells. So every artillery attack is very precious. they may not be able to do what they do previously in the earlier part of the war, where they can actually use overwhelming artillery fire to block off a Russian offensive. This time round, things are going to be a bit, or actually a lot more trickier for the Ukrainian forces. Further north of Krasnohorivka, FPV drones are hunting Ukrainian positions as well. So, so this is definitely, not very fun for the Ukrainians. Further up in the west, there is Russian airstrike over at Hostre, a massive airstrike around this area here. So situation is very bad. It looks like the Russians are pushing in two different directions. With the primary direction over at Krasnohorivka, I think they are very determined to capture this city, given the amount of investment coming into this area here. And then fighting at Boyedar direction and Georgievka seems to be the diversionary, with the main push is over Krasnohorivka. So Ukrainian forces are now going to be caught in between, deciding whether to reinforce the other positions or actually concentrate their reinforcement towards Krasnohorivka. And this is not even talking about Novomihailivka, where the Russians have been making huge push in this direction. We move into the Avdiivka Front. Before we go there, there is a strike, a missile strike on Ukrainian field camp west of Pokrovsk. And according to the images coming out, it seems like some smirch-like smirch version of the Ukrainian smirch version of the MLRS getting destroyed. And smirch can fire super long distance, 50 to 70 kilometers if I'm not wrong. And the front line is basically exactly where almost where the maximum distance is. The front line is around 45 kilometers away. So this is actually positioned exactly where they can actually fire barrages into Russian territory or Russian controlled areas. So this is actually correct positioned, but it still got hunted down, captured by drone. The drones are hunting for all these vehicles, and once discovered, a missile strike is launched. So this is, the Russians are getting really good at this kind of thing and are hunting for equipments in the rear positions. So we move on to the Avdiivka Front. Avdiivka Front, Russian forces continue to step up on their offensive in this direction, fighting reported at Novokalinove, towards Ocheretine, towards Novobakhmutivka, at Bedaichi, at Semenivka, at Umanske, Netelove, Pervomayske. Ukrainian forces counterattack at Pervomayske towards Vodian, at Umanske, Bedaichi, and over at Novobakhmutivka. So the Russian forces are expanding their control in this area here, particularly towards Ocheretine and Novobakhmutivka as the main push. Netelove will be the next target over this area here. Umanske will be also the village to watch. And Semenivka is on the edge, on the verge of collapse, and is going to shift the front line over to this Novoborovsky line. So this is good. The next line is going to be around here. Let me draw in another color. This is going to be the next line. So this collapse is coming too fast, because this line will become invalidated. It will become useless if the Russian capture Ocheretine. They will just go into the rear position, totally bypass the entire newly built defense line. This defense line around here, along the water bodies, this is actually the desperately built defense line by the Ukrainian forces, while the Russians was actually fighting for Tonenke, Letoshkine. The Ukrainian forces actually they'll give up and sacrifice a lot of troops in this area here and at Cheverne to make time for the Ukrainian forces to build this line around here. Let me move this border here. I realize everything is squeezing to the left. So and the Ukrainian forces have gave up so much troops trying to hold the Russians back around on the western part of Avdiivka to build this line. Now the Russian forces are able to bypass by capturing Ocheretine and Novobakhmutivka and just go to the rear, and this will just collapse the entire newly built front line. This is what is currently happening. So this is horrible for the Ukrainians, because the prepared line from the Novoborovsky line to Novosibirska Praha, this entire line that I should draw to in blue, this entire line is wasted, entirely wasted, because the Russians can totally not touch it. And this line is also very heavy because there was pre-war and entrenchments. You can see this is a pre-war entrenchment, another heavy fortress over here, and another heavy fortress over here. So the Russian forces, and there's one more here, over at north of Sokil. So this entire line and this new line is the new defensive line, and then the Russians just say bye bye, go on the north. Disastrous. So anyway, so this is the current situation. As the frontline changes report I already mentioned, Russian forces have captured this much ground in 2 days. 2 days. In 2 days. This is the amount of grounds captured in 2 days. So this literally means the Ukrainian lines around here have totally collapsed. There is no other way to describe this, then collapsed. It just broke through. The Russians just broke through, and this threatens the entire strategic posture in this front line. So that's bad. In terms of geolocation, at Mojove, we have geolocation of counter artillery action. There over at Semenivka, Russian forces geolocated in the center, which means that just a little bit more Russian forces will be capturing the entire of Semenivka, and so that's it, man. The entire attack at Novokalinove seems to be a diversion. So previously we have this massive attack coming from the south of Novokalinove as well as the eastern part, and they were swapping between the two directions in the span of 3 days, and this probably drew a lot of Ukrainian reinforcement into Novokalinove to plug the hole in this area here, and maybe this redeployment got exploited by the Russians to make this massive push, which means that they did a mini feint left hook right, and then a feint right hook left. Then suddenly the sucker punch actually coming from the west. This is actually the real attack. They attack here, then they feint here, attack here, and then they feint here, attack here. And then this is actually the real push. Can you imagine that? How are the Ukrainians are going to cope with this? Oh my God! So the Russians are really starting to show off. They really start to show off. They're doing the Muhammad Ali, punch me here, punch me there. I'm not there, Then they start to shake his body. Okay, so that's all from the Avdiivka Front. Over at the New York Front, Russian forces are attacking New York towards the New York direction in both days. So they are putting pressure on the Ukrainian forces around this area. But as I mentioned, it's impossible that the Russians are heading in this direction. It's a pointless battle, because so these are probably just probings. Because if you look at the number of heavy entrenchment around here, it's just it's just pointless. There's just no point for the Russians to break through this heavy line around here. There's just no point. So just go around it. New York is a very vulnerable city. There's no point to attack it. Over at the Bakhmut Front, in the southern flank of the Bakhmut Front, we have south of Dilievka, a Ukrainian radar getting hit. Not sure what kind of radar is that. Maybe counter artillery radar, given it's so close to the front line. And in the southern flank of the Bakhmut Front, Russian forces attacking Klishchievka, Andriivka, as well as Kudyumivka. So this is currently the situation in the southern front. And we move into the northern front. In the northern front, Russian forces continue their attack over in the Bodanivka region after the capture. Towards Nove, they are threatening the front line south of Nove. They are attacking towards Chasivia and in the direction of Ivaniske. The fact that Ukrainian forces geolocated in the western part of Ivaniske invalidated the entire Russian claim on the western part of Ivaniske right now. And there's geolocation of FPV drones hitting Ukrainian forces within Novi itself, wrong color, as well as there's an artillery hitting northwest of Chasivia. So this is the current strategic situation over in this Chasivia direction in the Bakhmut Front. Russian forces continue to push, but as I mentioned before, this is an extremely difficult place to fight. I still don't understand why the Russians want to push in this direction. This is a very, very difficult place to fight. And I mentioned before, this forest is extremely advantageous for the Ukrainians, and clearly we see with the Ukrainians appearing over in this western part of Ivaniske, which means that the Ukrainians actually still do have easy control over this forest, which means that the entire Russian claim that the Russians have taken this area here in a massive Ukrainian withdrawal seems to be invalidated for now. Because there is a one-sided claim. In terms of the Ukrainian side, they never acknowledged something like that had happened. So anyway, we'll continue to monitor this Bakhmut Front. And then we move into the Siversk Front. At the Siversk Front, Russian forces continue to put pressure. Fighting reported at Bilohorivka towards Verkhnokanyamsky at Sperne, geolocation of Russian forces southeast of Vimka, as well as Ukrainian counterattack over at Vasily. But the counterattack is only for 1 day on the 14th, so this counterattack probably have failed. So this is the strategic situation at the Siversk Front. We move into the Kreminna Front. At the Kreminna Front, Russian forces attacking Terny as usual, and this time around we have a return of the fighting at Torsky. The last attack was on the 12th. Previously, it was 2 months ago. So we will continue to monitor. I got a feeling that the Russians may start to do a massive offensive in the Kreminna direction because the Ukrainians are struggling to keep up with the Russians. So because there is a lancet attack on the Ukrainian temporary position. So there was two vehicles, 2 trucks, parking next to each other. They have some satellite dish or solar panel thing. They are like, it's like a checkpoint. So, and then it was destroyed. Everyone died in the lancet attack, and so this, which means that the Russians may be actually looking at doing a massive offensive towards Liman, a possibility. So because something is brewing. Something is not right. This area is so quiet, and the fighting restarting at Torsky does seems to be it might be actually some kind of combat, reconnaissance by combat. That means they are scouting by sending forces forward, and if they contacted the enemy, they started to have a firefight, they know the enemy is there. So this could be the case that is currently happening at Torsky. They're trying to figure out where the Ukrainian forces are after not fighting for 2 months, and the Russians may be planning something big. So we will definitely have to keep a lookout for this front line, the Kreminna Front, and who knows, this might change its name to the Liman Front. So we move on further up north. Over at Svatove, we have news fighting reported at Stemerkivka, according to the Russian Defense Ministry on the 14th, but this is not reported on the 15th, so this could be a one-off attack. So that's all for this Svatove Front. We move into the Kupyansk Front. At the Kupyansk Front, there is more vector of attack appearing. So we have Sinkivka, and we have this fighting reported at Zaporizhzhia. And Zaporizhzhia is actually, pretty recent. It just started on the 14th. So this is a new attack. And then now in the latest, on the 15th, we have Kotelevivka also starting to fight again. The last attack was a month ago. So who knows, Kupyansk Front may start to flare up again. So as the Ukrainians are definitely struggling, and given the pause, the 2 months pause at the Kupyansk, Kreminna Front, Svatove Front, Ukrainian forces may be very tempted and to move heavy equipment and reinforcement or ammos to the other active front line. And if they actually do that, then they will leave all these quiet fronts bare or lacking, which means that the Russians, if they start to attack in these directions, will have it easier. And this is currently rather desperate for the Ukrainian side. Over at the Kharkiv region, this no longer is the active front line per se. It's just now positional. Russian forces continue to grind away at Ukrainian forces. There is a radar, the IRIS-T surface-to-air missile system getting hit over here. This is in the southeast of Kharkiv city, and then there is also a lancet strike northeast of Kharkiv. And then in the border region, there is artillery hitting Ukrainian forces at Hotivka, and another one over artillery hitting at a veterinary over here, as well as one more. This is also artillery hitting at Ukrainian forces over at Lemishchine. So we have all these attacks in the past 48 hours. So yeah, Kharkiv Front continues to be very itchy. I feel like Russia may in the near future start to consider very seriously about offensive. But at this moment, Kharkiv Front is very, very heavily defended by the Ukrainian side, which is why I think this softening operation will continue for some time before the Russians feel confident enough to actually launch an attack. So, I think that's all. This is the summary for the day of 782 for the 15th of April. Press the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next. Wait, support me on Patreon. I need more money. I'm running low on funds because too low views, so no revenue. Help me. I'll see you guys in the next update.